You don't understand, Karla. You're everything to me. You were my whole support system. I'm nothing without you. I'm nothing. No! The Grim Reaper's coming! No! God!
How's everybody doing today? So here I am doing the third part of my Paul Bernardo, Karla Homolka story. Third in the series. And I'm in a cemetery here, and this is where the story is eventually going to end up. But I want to do a little recap, get us to where we're at so far in the story. Because there's a few things, well, I'll explain. See, it's May of 92 roughly, right? They've killed Karla's younger sister Tammy, they've murdered Leslie Mahaffy, they've murdered Kristen French. And now in May of 92, police go on a tip, go and question Paul Bernardo again. He's been questioned about the Scarborough rapes in Toronto, now here in St. Catharines. He's being questioned at his house on 57 Bayview Drive, acting on a tip about the murders. They don't suspect him at all though when they leave. Perfect wife, perfect house, upstanding young man. Well-spoken, didn't seem nervous. Now, a part of the story that I've left out is Karla Homolka was viciously beaten by Paul Bernardo throughout their relationship. This does not excuse her behavior or what she did, but it's integral to the story moving forward. Emotionally abused, verbally abused, physically abused. I mean, groomed and manipulated since she was 16 years old. So that's where the story now goes, because that comes into play. He once hit her so hard on the back of her head, I guess her brain cavity or her skull went forward into her eyes, giving her 2 black eyes. And that's how she looked. Now, she tried to leave him once. That was after Kristen French was murdered. She couldn't do it. Then in January of 93, she finally left him for good when that photo was taken. And that was 10 days after the beating. So, and like I said, Karla Homolka does not, I'm just explaining that she was a victim of domestic violence, spousal abuse, and in no way clears her for her actions, but it's integral to the story going further. And I think what I'm going to do is, if you have questions, comments, as always, like write them below. I might do another video answering questions that I know of that maybe you're asking about the trial or the case that maybe I know, or my opinions. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. You'll be able to find the information anywhere. I'm not an expert on the case, but I thought maybe that's something interesting to do. So if you have questions or comments or something, right below. So, Karla Homolka is January 93. She's now left Paul Bernardo for the final time. And that's where the story picks up. Back at 57 Bayview Drive in St. Catharines here. Let's go. When Homolka returned to work on January 4th, 1993, and tried to pass off her injuries as a result of a traffic accident, her co-workers did not believe her and alerted her parents. She was taken to the hospital, and once there, Homolka claimed to be a battered spouse and filed charges against Bernardo, who was briefly arrested. By sheer coincidence, the samples of DNA that Bernardo had given 2 years earlier were tested right around the same time, positively identifying him as the Scarborough rapist. Homolka had moved to Brampton, a city west of Toronto, with her aunt and uncle, and told them that Bernardo was both the Scarborough rapist and the killer of Mahaffy and French. In February, she sought full immunity for prosecution in exchange for her cooperation, but this was denied. Instead, Homolka was given a week to accept a 12-year prison term for manslaughter or face charges for 3 murders, one of them being Tammy Homolka's, whose case had just been reopened. Homolka took the deal and testified against Bernardo at his trial, which began in 1995. February 1st, 1993. So this is 26 months after Paul Bernardo first submitted his DNA for testing when he was investigated as a suspect in the Scarborough rapes. 26 months later, in this building here, 25 Grosvenor in downtown Toronto, this is where they matched his DNA. They were very backed up. There's two people. The Center for Forensic Sciences was consisted of two people at that time for a huge city like Toronto. And they did all the work right here in this building. This is it right here. So there it is, right behind me, the former offices of the Center for Forensic Sciences. Right in there. Okay, on to somewhere else. When he was arrested, Bernardo was first questioned for hours in Halton at the police department there. Investigators let him know they know everything. Leslie Mahaffy, Kristen French, everything. Then, on February 18th, a day later, he was shipped off to 41 Division in Toronto. This is where Bernardo was held overnight until his first court appearance, where he would face charges as the Scarborough rapist. So after Paul Bernardo spent the night at 41 Division, just up the street, he came here to the Scarborough courts, where he faced 45 sex-related charges. Now, what's interesting about this is February 18th. So no plea was given. He didn't say a word. He was remanded until March 2nd. Now, just weeks before Paul Bernardo first appeared here that morning, February 18th, his father was convicted in the same building on sexual assault charges dating back to the 60s. So Paul Bernardo on February 18th was remanded until March 2nd, which was the same date his father was being sentenced here in the same building. Someone in the courthouse tipped the media off, and there was lots of stories about that there should be a Bernardo courtroom designated just for the Bernardo family in this building here. So I took some video of the outside of it yesterday when I was driving by, and there are no cars in the parking lot, to give you a sense of what a suburban courthouse looks like. It's a lot different than one I'm going to show you soon, a major one in Toronto. But here it is right here. This is Toronto's notorious East Detention Centre. This jail is where Paul Bernardo spent his time awaiting trial and where he was held during his trial. As with any prison, it's quite difficult filming outside. I was approached by security, explained what I was doing, and they allowed me to continue filming, but they were still a little quizzical about it. This is the backside. This is just where you would see the yard on the other side, where the inmates are let out for however many minutes, hours a day. I don't believe Paul Bernardo was let out with other inmates, though. He was famous in that prison, and they hated him. Good. While he was being held at East Detention, officers secured a search warrant for the house at 57 Bayview Drive. Because Bernardo's link to the murders was weak, the warrant was limited. No evidence which was not expected and documented in the warrant could be removed from the premises, and all videotapes found by police had to be viewed in the house. Damage had to be kept to a minimum. Police could not tear down walls looking for the videotapes. The search of the house, including updated warrants, lasted 71 days, and the only tape found by police had a brief segment of Homolka performing a sex act on Jane Doe. Bernardo's counsel then had access to the house after the police, and Bernardo himself instructed his lawyers where to find the incriminating videotapes, hidden in pot lights in the bathroom. After holding on to the videotapes for some time, His lawyers then presented them to the police, and they were used against Bernardo in his trial. This is the Toronto Courthouse in downtown Toronto at 361 University Avenue. It is a branch of the Ontario Superior Court of Justice and is used for criminal trials. This is where in 1995 Bernardo was tried for the murders of French and Mahaffy, and his trial included detailed testimony from Homolka, who had already been convicted. Citing the need to protect Bernardo's right to a fair trial, a publication ban was imposed on Homolka's preliminary inquiry. Karla Homolka was, of course, called to testify against her ex-husband. And, of course, blame was pointed both ways. He took the stand, she took the stand. It was a media circus. O.J. Simpson was on trial at the same time in the States, and I think most people know how big of a story that was. This story was even bigger in Canada. It was the biggest news story. It was across all newspapers, all major media, but they couldn't report the main details. So people lined up. People were clamoring to get into that courtroom, especially when Karla Homolka testified. This is the inside of the courtroom where Paul Bernardo's trial was held. Now, I did not take these photographs, but they did allow me up. They said I was very shocked. I thought due to coronavirus and just because I had no reason other than wanting just to see it, that I wouldn't be allowed up. But they let me go up. And it was a very eerie feeling being inside there. These are some sketches from the trial. There's Paul Bernardo on the witness stand. And coming up will be Karla Homolka with Paul Bernardo in the foreground watching her on the stand. Well, it was quite an odd feeling being inside the courtroom. I can't explain what that was like. I wish I could have brought you in with me, but because it is criminal courts, they just don't allow it. Everybody who worked here, though, was very, very, very nice, very Canadian, very friendly, and wanted to help, but they can't break the law to help me break the law. So I couldn't take anything in there. But it was very, very an eerie feeling, a weird feeling, knowing what happened in that courtroom. On September 1st, 1995, Paul Bernardo was convicted of a number of offenses, including the 2 first-degree murders and 2 aggravated sexual assaults, and sentenced to life in prison without parole for at least 25 years. He was designated a dangerous offender, which makes him unlikely to ever be released. This is where Paul Bernardo ended up. For almost 20 years, here at the Kingston Penitentiary. It's closed now. It's no longer open. Well, it's no longer a working prison. It's open for tours. Unfortunately, not right now due to COVID. But he served almost 20 years here. Then he was transferred to the Millhaven Institute in Bath, Ontario, which isn't far from here. In this prison, he was punched in the face by a fellow inmate not too long after he was sent here. And a few years afterwards, about 5 prisoners tried to storm the segregation unit where he was kept. And they were gassed by prison guards, so they didn't get to him. I think they probably deserved some extra dessert that night at least. Yeah, and then he was sent to Millhaven from around 2013, I think, 2013. And then this prison closed. Wow. I actually did a video from here before and I never uploaded it, but one day I'm gonna do one where I'm inside when it's open again for tours. And right across the street is a women's prison where his ex-wife Karla Homolka served. They were across the street from each other. Isn't that nuts? She was only here for about 4 years, and then she was sent to Joliet, Quebec, a women's prison there. And then she was transferred to another one, and then of course released. But here's the outside of the Kingston Penitentiary, where Paul Bernardo was incarcerated in a segregation unit. Which still doesn't seem enough, does it? I've been up close to these doors before. You got to see them. They're just massive. And it's, I mean, like the outside of any prison, it's quite imposing. Let's take a look. Here's a photograph of Paul Bernardo funneling beer in a bathtub, having the time of his life. And here he is in his cell in Kingston Pen. It's about the size of a bathtub, but a little bit different. Paul Bernardo has applied for parole already in October of 2018, I believe it was. That would have been 25 years since he was caught. So I guess he started serving his time here in 1995. So 2018 would not be 25 years. But 2018 from 1993 from when he was caught. So I guess they counted the first 2 years as being part of his sentence. That doesn't seem right either. They should have started as soon as he got in here. But he was denied parole. And he applied for day parole too, in Toronto, to be allowed to be released in Toronto for day parole. Denied. On the day she was released, Karla Homolka gave an interview to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation entirely in French, which she learned while she was in prison. That's Homolka there on the right and her lawyer to her right. The interviewer asked her a wide variety of questions. Specifically here, she's being asked if she's likely to reoffend, if she would follow someone the way she followed Paul Bernardo. Homolka says no a couple of times and says it's different now. She's an adult. Back then, she was only 17. She lacks self-confidence. So she's saying she's likely not to reoffend. I guess we have to take her word for it. As I previously stated, Karla Homolka is now free. She married her lawyer's brother and has 3 children and has settled down in a suburb of Quebec. The media spends some time trying to find her, as do other people, and from what I've heard, she hates having her photos shown how she looks nowadays. So the last thing I would want to do is intrude on her privacy like that. I said that with great sarcasm. Here's some photographs of how she looks nowadays. Free. So here I am at Leslie Mahaffy's grave here in Burlington. There's always stuff left out for her, which is nice, on her grave. It's a beautiful, beautiful stone. And let's have a look right now. Pay your respects to Leslie, Paul Bernardo's and Karla Homolka's second victim. Right here. And I brought a rock to place as well, as you can see other people have as well. here. I'd like to see what this button says. Never forgotten. And this is looping. It's nice to see people come out here. Special sister to Ryan, till we are together again. She loved her little brother so much. And right over here, there's a bench for her. For your comfort and peace, in memory of Leslie Mahaffy, 1991, friend forever. And that is it for the story of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. But as I always like to say, it's a story about their victims whose life is so much more than how it ended. So much more. Be 44, 45 now, 28, 43, 44 now. Maybe starting your teens, your 20s, your 30s. Rest in peace to the girls. I hope they're resting comfortably. Karla Homolka, keep your head down. I don't know what to say to you. You're out there somewhere, walking around free. And Paul Bernardo, I hope your cell gets smaller and smaller each day, and you're never getting out. Keep applying for the parole. You're never getting out. Ever. Okay, rap star? Peace out.
The dream comes fast and with growing frequency. You and I are right back at the start, but you won't speak to me. And then I wake up to face another day. I wake up to face another day. There was me and you and nobody else. now it's just me.
You like hiding in the dark and mystery. It's a story arc that leaves out little parts of our history. When you wake up to face another day, you wake up to face another day. There was you and me and nobody else. Now it's just you.
All around this shady town, crooks and sharks and thieves. If I look across the world, I'll never see what you see.